Hey everybody, welcome. My name is Matt. I'm here with Andrew today. We're going to be talking about Minority Report as we first discuss our top 10 Spielberg films and then give our thoughts on this Tom Cruise mindbender. So grab your popcorn and Reese's Pieces and let's break it down on the Post Credit Podcast.
They didn't even put meat on my chicken bacon ranch. And, Rachel's looking through it. And then she's like, yes, they are, Achilles. You see that little tiny sliver of chicken that they put on the very bottom? They did put chicken on your sandwich. But, I mean, dude, it was like,
Pretty
took
terrible.
up a tenth of the sandwich.
Jeez.
If that.
Jeez. All right. I like doing these top 10 lists. Do you?
Yeah.
It feels like you
But
know.
I just it's just because, my lists sometimes change, and it might go back to how I originally had it. Then it changes again, then it might go back, and,
and that's
it's kind
fine.
of one of those things.
And there's different ways you can write it, right? Like you could have a top 10 list of the top best. That would have to be a objective list. Or you could have your top favorite of my favorite movies, or the top 10 what I'll go to most. I mean, this is how I wrote mine. I wrote mine in the order of of how I'd want to watch it. Like, I would watch this one, but if I had a list of movies here, you have to pick one of these. This is what I'd watch this before I'd watch that. I'd watch this before that. So that's kind of
I can't see your monitor because you're pointing at things.
No, I know, but I shut up. No, but that's how I do it, and that's how I did it in order. Is in the order that I would want to watch him if I had to watch all of his movies. Just in what's best for me. It doesn't mean that because I have a lot of his. I mean, some of his greatest movies are not even on the list because I wouldn't go straight to him. I like to have fun when I'm watching movies, so I'm not going to put on Schindler's List to have a good time.
Yeah, because that's a hard movie to watch, but at the same time, the ending's one of those endings where, like, you do feel good about it, but at the same time, you're still like, ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh.
And I think for me, it's all about preference. Yeah, there are things that I got the drag races going on.
Is that your
outside.
son?
Yeah.
Is that your son?
Yeah, he took off.
In his 4x4?
Yeah, he took off. So there are things that are obviously better than others in this list that are higher. But I just wrote it in the list that I would watch it, just having fun.
My first six switch all the time.
Yeah, and that's probably me too.
Depending on my mood.
But I think when I was writing this is like, okay, if I had to watch a Steven Spielberg movie right now, which one would I put on? That was what was number one.
Me too.
Okay, after that, I have to watch another one. Out of all of them I could watch, which one would it be? That's the one I put on set number 2. And I went down like that. All right, let's get into this. What's your number 10?
I didn't know you wanted to go back that way.
Yeah, let's go. We're going to go backwards.
I don't like
We
that.
always go backwards.
Okay. My number 10 is going to be E.T.
Oh, okay. What makes it your number 10? What makes it on the list and not off the list?
It's on the list more for
Nostalgia, maybe?
nostalgia more than anything. But plus, it was for its time. It was a great concept. It was a great movie. So many other movies copied it right after it came out. You know what I mean? Mac and Me, and we talked about that too. But it wasn't just Mac and Me that did it. I was looking through it. There is tons of shows that copied the same
Shows
script.
and movies.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's just mainly nostalgia.
Yeah, and the score. There's not only so many different iconic scenes and everything, but I think John Williams won an Oscar for it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just quite an amazing movie. At number 10, I have Hook.
Yeah.
And I have that on there for the same reason you have E.T., and that's more for nostalgia. I watched that a lot when I was younger. We had it recorded on a VHS tape. I don't know if you remember, because, since we were poor, we used to, the one great thing we had was HBO, and we only had it for a certain amount of time. But when we had it, we recorded a bunch of movies onto the VHS from HBO. So
Don't tell
no, it's fine. We didn't redistribute.
Remember, you see those FBI things all the time that come up?
Yeah, but you can't redistribute it. You can't copy it for purposes of making money.
Everybody was doing it.
Yeah. So, anyways, we used to record those movies, and Hook always came right after Batman Returns. Mm-hmm. And it actually cut, Batman Returns, it pans up and you see Catwoman stand back up, and that's how it ended.
See, I loved it when we had VHS because, you could fit about 3 movies, I think. What was it, right?
3 to 5.
Yeah.
Depending on.
On the VHS, and we had so many of them that none of them were in any kind of category.
Nope. That's why you'd have Hook right after Batman Returns.
Right. But that's what I'm saying. Like we could easily just. And it was kind of a lot more pleasant, more surprising, like if you didn't know exactly what was on that movie, you put it in there, you finish the one movie.
You have a mystery day.
You're like,
what's on there? I didn't look. We're just going to watch whatever's on here.
I got some time.
Hit rewind and play it to the end. I'm going to
sit down right here and continue to watch movie number 2. Probably where the love of movies came from. But again, it was so nice because, again, none of them, it wasn't like Batman 1, 2, and 3.
Because you put on a movie, then you'd forget what was after it. And then, we never timed it perfectly, or we always cut out credits.
Yeah.
So you'd start recording right when the movie ends, but sometimes you cut off the ending, which Batman Returns did that. So you'd just be watching it, waiting for the end, and then suddenly some other credits would be starting for another movie, and you're like, what is this? And it starts playing, and you're like, oh, I haven't seen this in a while.
It's a pleasant surprise. You don't have
that anymore.
You have so much selection
on Netflix and everything.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is usually those kind of have somewhat to do with what
it
this
should be random
previously. But
it should not only be random, but there should be things that you like that are part of your movie watching experience.
But this is so much harder now, because I'm like, let's see, okay, this movie is not on this network, so I got to go to this streaming service. So I've got 50 different streaming services. Yeah. And you're like, okay, well, there's so many choices. There's, let's go to Netflix. No, so you did all that one. Hulu, I don't know.
I know.
All
it's overwhelming.
It's so hard to pick a movie now, and where back then, again, you slapped it in that VHS and you just go with it.
Everybody else would just watch a movie, but for us, it's like we want to know what it's about before we start watching it. I think, we got probably a lot more riskier people that like to kind of jump off the edge and just go watch something.
Yeah.
I like Hook. Obviously, Robin Williams, him and Steven Spielberg, and even Julia Roberts, they captured something magical in that movie. Dustin Hoffman, obviously. It's so weird.
Julia Roberts.
It's such a weird Peter Pan movie, but it's so good.
You know why they made her a fairy? Because if she was in real life, she literally would be taller than Dustin Hoffman.
All of them. Robin Williams is short too,
and all the kids and everybody. I mean, she would tower over them. She's not even freakishly tall.
Yeah,
she's just average, a little above average, maybe, or maybe just out in average. But all the actors in that movie are just
she was
short.
a good Tinkerbell.
She was.
Yeah.
I was a big fan. You know?
What's your number 9?
Hook.
All right.
Just skip right on to your number 9.
Probably the same thing.
Yep.
Ready Player One is my number 9.
Really? That's not even on my list.
It's not. When's the last time you watched it?
I watched it one time. A couple months ago.
Were you paying attention to it?
Enough, but I don't like okay. Paranormal Activities, where it's videotaped, it's like that, the way that's filmed, because
when you're in the world, because you have the camera shots, look at the avatar.
Yeah, I don't like that.
Yeah, but I mean, it's one thing. It's like a really kind of dystopian future or whatever, But it just brings back all the greats from people that are our age. It brings back all those greats. You have things like you're throwing a Chucky doll at somebody. You have the Iron Giant.
Yeah.
You have the Halo characters. You have, Goro. Somebody turns into Goro from Mortal Kombat.
Yeah.
You just have not only video games but everything from pop culture in this world. And I don't know. I found myself going, how did they get permission to use all of this stuff? Because it's not all owned by the one studio. It can't be.
You never know. They're all owned by either Coca-Cola or Pepsi. One or the other owns each
Disney.
one. Or Disney. Yeah.
Right. I don't know. It's a really fun movie. I'd like to talk about it one time, but I want you to watch it again to see if you actually
I'm not saying I hate it. I'm not saying I hate it. It just didn't make my list. It's not even really an honorable mention for me. So,
all right. What's your number 8?
Number 8 would have to be Saving Private Ryan.
Our lists are somewhat close. We have. It's interesting because our other lists were kind of close too, to where we can kind of 7 to 6 we could talk about it or whatever.
Yeah.
So, Saving Private Ryan is your number 8.
Yeah.
All right, so what makes it your number 8?
It's a phenomenal movie. It's just, again, Spielberg has a way of making movies that, exceptional movies, great direction. He brings in the greatest team when it comes to sound and picture and camera work and actors and story and everything.
His overall vision.
It's just he makes them so it's very realistic to the point where they're so real that it's just kind of hard to watch sometimes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and I'm not saying with all these, because like probably the first 6 on my list, 1 through 6, is not like this. You know what I mean? But some of his movies are very hard. Like even AI, at the end, it didn't really have a very pleasant ending. You know what I mean? It did, but it didn't. And then same thing with, Saving Private Ryan. They accomplished the mission, but everybody died but Private Ryan. You know what I mean? Things like that. It just was. He does such a good job at storytelling, but he does make it very hard to watch some of his movies.
Yeah, he's got unique visuals.
Yes.
With the unique story, and there's not a lot of fluff in it.
Yeah.
It's all about driving the story forward, and there's always something fantastical.
Yeah.
I think we talked about this in the last episode. Something fantastical about his world. Like we even said, to the point where, whether you're talking about aliens or robots or even Nazis, something that's not every day or whatever. Mm-hmm. But he does it in a way where you can't have, I don't want to say fun, because I know there's certain movies you can't have fun with, but you almost have like an excitement to get to the next scene. He has that good lead-ins, and I don't know, it's hard to explain.
No, and when I say he makes them hard to watch, it doesn't mean that he's doing anything wrong. I'm meaning that it makes it hard to watch, where it's like so realistic. Yeah. So it's so realistic that you're just like on the edge of your seat, and you feel like this is real life kind of situation, but it's a hard topic.
Yeah.
It's really a hard topic to kind of be okay with.
Nobody had done such a brutal and realistic and heart-pumping scene as that opening scene.
The greatest, I'm sorry, but the greatest war movie, in my opinion.
Greatest war movie or greatest war scene? That beginning scene.
Good.
Because remember, that whole scene is like 15 minutes or so, and then the rest of it is kind of a lot of walking. I mean, you got fighting and stuff along the way.
But then you
becomes
see
like Lord of the Rings.
And then you see Band of Brothers. You know what I'm saying? And that was done by Spielberg, right?
I think he might have been a producer. I know Tom Hanks was a producer on it, but Spielberg might have been a producer as well.
I think
I'm
so.
just not sure. I think you might be right.
But I think
they did the Pacific together.
Those are like some of the greatest war depictions. Okay, I've never been there, so we've had relatives that have been there,
right?
But I feel like it was the greatest war depictions, in either of those pictures. The Saving Private Ryan, and then the Band of Brothers. I thought it was probably the greatest thing. It's definitely these two. This movie and that TV show was the thing that really kind of got me so interested in learning about World War II and things like that. Our grandfather was in World War II, but
Band of Brothers was big on that too, because
it got me interested.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It got me really into the point where I really wanted to know about this war.
See, I'm not a huge fan of war movies.
Yeah.
I just, I appreciate them for what they are and everything like that, but I don't know. There's something that I guess I just don't like. I mean, because you know a lot of the outcomes of what a lot of it's going to be, but Angie showed me the Band of Brothers, and then I really got into that one.
Yeah.
But I was in Alaska and had nothing else to do, so that could have been
it's definitely a binge-worthy show. I mean, but it's just a long binge. That's like a 5-day weekend.
Yeah. That's and it's heavy because, and I like all the stories from the real life people too.
Yeah,
like before and after the episodes or whatever. It's really cool. My number 8 is Catch Me If You Can. Which is what we're gonna do not tomorrow, next week.
Episode.
Yeah, next episode. We're gonna do Catch Me If You Can, another Tom Hanks and Spielberg collaboration, and
he likes himself some Hanks.
Was this their first collaboration, or I can't remember if Saving Private Ryan came out first?
Yeah, Saving Private Ryan came out in '98.
Okay, so Catch Me If You Can,
2002. 2002, I mean.
Oh, okay.
202.
Catch Me If You Can not only has Spielberg, but it has Tom Hanks, and it has Leonardo DiCaprio, and it has Christopher Walken.
Leonardo DiCaprio, but he was phenomenal.
Yeah, and it has so many different kind of cameos, right? You got the Grey's Anatomy. Well, I mean, we can get into it when we do the episode, but I mean,
calm down.
Yeah, Catch Me If You Can is such a good story because, somebody who's like a forger, a criminal. When you get into, you have your main character as a criminal, you're always intrigued because you're not the typical or average person isn't part of the criminal life, and so they've never heard of these things, or they don't know how it goes, or they may have heard stories here or there, but they don't exactly know how it works. So it's fascinating to see how criminals do this in like in a medium where you don't have to feel like you're just watching somebody do wrong. Like you almost feel like it's the good guy, even though they're doing the wrong, bad things and everything. They're a good person or whatever, and so you want them to do well, and you're looking at all these schemes you're doing. You just want them to get away with it. I don't know. I really enjoyed that, the cat and mouse between Leonardo DiCaprio and Tom Hanks' character. I think that it's Steven or Catch Me If You Can looked different than all of Spielberg's movies. It felt different than Spielberg's
probably because
movies.
it was a true story. Maybe that had a lot to do with it. Really.
Yeah. So, anyways, I really enjoyed Saving or Catch Me If You Can, but we'll talk more about that next week. What's your number 7?
Schindler's List.
Schindler's
also
List.
one of the greatest movies of all time.
So that
you know what's funny about this? This is very higher up on my list as number 7.
Mm-hmm.
But if I were to rate my favorite movie, it's weird how my list works, because if I were to rate my favorite movie, Schindler's List would probably be a lot lower than maybe 5 of those top 5 Spielberg movies. Does that make sense?
So when I say I wrote my list, like the order that I would watch it, how did you write your list?
That's what I'm talking about. If I'm going to watch just 10 Spielberg movies, this is the order I'd watch them. But Schindler's List is further or higher up in my list of favorite movies of all time, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Than some of my top 5 Spielberg movies.
Gotcha. We talked about it a bit and everything, and all the good and the bad about it. It's I do like how it's even the way it's filmed. It's not just that it's black and white, but the audio in it makes it seem like it was a movie that was made back in the 40s, like during the time that this was going on and everything.
Yeah.
So it's almost like a real account and everything, because even the audio was a little. It wasn't as heavy as it usually is, like, when the audio wasn't as good back in the day. I don't know.
And the acting we just get from Liam Neeson, though, on this movie.
Not only Liam Neeson, but Ralph Fiennes.
Yeah, Voldemort, man. I mean, he was just... And there was no liking his character. Like, I did not like his character at all. But
you loved how you hated him.
I loved how I hated him, and the fact that, this is somewhat of a true story. I know Schindler was true and all that other stuff. I don't know about that guard that
I think it is because they got all the accounts from the surviving members.
Well, then he just, this was an evil human being.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I love the movie and everything else, but
it's often talked about.
Ralph Fiennes and Liam Neeson, some of the best acting I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's often talked about one of the most shocking scenes in cinema history is I forgot his name in the movie, but him just picking off people out in the yard. Yeah. People that stand out to him.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, the scene with the girl with the red coat and all that kind of stuff. But
all the color in the entire movie.
Yeah. My number 7 is Saving Private Ryan. So that was your number 8. We're pretty close there. What's your number 6?
My number 6 is probably going to be Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Oh, you didn't actually write it down. You're just kind of off the cuff.
No, because the way I want to switch it, because, again, I said 6, my top 6 would move around.
Yeah, so we're on 6, right?
Yeah.
Okay. We're still pretty close.
Yeah. Raiders of the Lost Ark definitely.
I'll just say right now, that's my number 5.
Yeah.
So, the fact that shows how close we are in our interests and our likes. But, yeah, I have that as number 5. What did you not like about Raiders? And why is... Now, let me ask you this. Without you saying what the title is, do you have another Indiana Jones movie above that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so why Raiders above any of the other Indiana Jones movies, without talking about the ones that you have up higher?
I don't like the heroine in it. The Shia LaBeouf's mom
in Raiders.
Yeah,
Joan Allen. Not Joan Allen.
No.
Oh my gosh, Karen Allen.
Yeah.
I
didn't like her the way her. Harrison Ford does good with very strong women roles. You know, he feeds off that very well.
Yeah.
You know, like even on, you know, Star Wars and things like that, you know, he does really well. I don't feel like she was tough, you know, but it was just, it seemed like it was a stretch for her. And it put me off about her, that movie. That's why it's lower on the list than the other ones.
But do you prefer her over Steven Spielberg's future wife, Kate Capshaw, in Temple? Because she is the most annoying thing. Just in that role,
I think she's funny.
Bad about her.
I don't look at her like being like she's not a knockout or you know, bad acting, but she's annoying. But I think she's funny.
She was the funny damsel that was just not into the situation they were in the whole movie. Right? Yeah, one of those characters. Whereas Karen Allen was more of a take charge type of person,
right?
More willing to do this or that. I mean, she still need. You know, she did. I think she did a lot more in the Crystal Skull movie, but
yeah.
Yeah, I see that. I mean, Raiders is great. I do have an Indiana Jones movie that's higher than Raiders, but I mean that first scene with, you know, him using the whip and all that kind of stuff, and he turns around and comes out of the shadow, and you see Indiana Jones, you see Harrison Ford as this, you know, tough grizzled archaeologist, and then you see him get back and he's a professor. You know, it's just so cool.
Yeah,
such a cool character.
Yeah,
and like we said, you know, precursor to so many things, but. You know, that ending is weird. Raiders, and this is one of those pop culture things, but if you look at it, Indiana Jones is one of the Raiders of the Lost Ark is one of those movies that I don't think people realize this until later, that Indiana Jones had no effect on the plot.
Yeah. Oh, I know.
Absolutely no effect on the plot.
I've seen that theory too, and then I looked into it, and I was like, holy cow.
Because if he hadn't ever gotten involved, they would have eventually found the staff. They would have eventually found where it is.
I don't know.
And they would have eventually taken out in the desert and opened it and all died.
Yeah.
Now, they did say, like, one of the things that did happen was we were able to recover the Ark.
Which we see in Crystal Skull.
And put it in storage. Yeah, so I don't know. Anyways, interesting. Interesting that we both have that movie a little bit lower. What's your number 5?
Number 5 would have...
Oh, I'm sorry. I got to go over my number 6.
Oh, yeah.
My number 6 is The Lost World. Now, I know that this is not a favorite Jurassic Park movie to a lot of people, but I really enjoy it. I think it's fun. I think the dinosaur in San Francisco or whatever... Was that San Diego? Maybe it was San Diego.
Yeah.
I don't know. Whichever. The dinosaur in the city is fun. You know, they're probably going to do a lot better job of it in this new Jurassic World movie that's coming out, where now the dinosaurs have kind of been populating the land and everything. But it was cool to see a dinosaur in real world. You know, take off of the island. Let's see how other regular people react to dinosaurs.
And you're talking about you're talking about Jurassic Park 2, right?
Lost World, Jurassic Park. Yeah. And I mean, Ian Malcolm's got to be one of the best characters from Jurassic Park.
Oh, absolutely.
And now
with the most personality,
character.
You know.
Now he does work better as a side character. He doesn't work as well being putting the movie on his shoulders and everything, because then he has to be the straight guy.
Yeah.
And he works better as the color guy. You know, so he needs to be on the side and everything, which is why it's definitely not as good as the first one. But I don't know. I just like The Lost World. I like you know, all the different character actors that are in it, that for some reason their names are escaping me right now. You know, it was kind of more gritty and you know, what do you want to call it? Like I don't know, not so commercialized. It was like a gritty type of Jurassic Park movie where there was no park. It was them kind of just, you know, rounding up animals on this wild island. You know, at least the first one, it had gates and it had everything in order and everything, and this was more wild or whatever. And then you had the T-Rex scenes and all that kind of stuff. So I think they probably relied too heavily on the T-Rexes in this movie, don't you think?
Yeah, but I kind of feel like the T-Rex is the real hero of most of these movies. I mean, except for the newer ones that are coming out, it's all about the raptors and stuff like that. But, you know, in the original Jurassic Parks, I think they were all like the T-Rex was the star, you know?
Yeah, I would slightly alter that by saying the the Raptors got a lot of importance put on them because the main guy, Alan Grant, was specialized in raptors and everything. So they talked a lot about that. T-Rex was just kind of one of those things that just popped. It needs to pop up every once in a while. It just is kind of the big daddy of them all.
Because everybody loves the T-Rex.
Yeah, like the real threat is the Raptors because they'll come after you and everything. But T-Rex can't really get inside of a building.
Goats have gotten away from the T-Rex.
Goats have gotten away. What's your number 5?
Crystal Skull.
Crystal Skull. I don't even have Crystal Skull on mine.
Really? I chose Crystal Skull because it's got Shia LaBeouf in it, and Shia LaBeouf just seems like he's a great actor. He's a great actor. Mm-hmm. It's just
when he's not yell acting.
Yes, there you go.
Optimus!
But it was just
Bumblebee!
And the fact that you bring in Harrison Ford at his age now, still cracking that whip, still swinging from here to there, still riding around in refrigerators, when they test bombs.
I was worried that his age would interfere with him playing a good Han Solo and a good Indiana Jones again. I think he did great coming back to it.
In both.
Yeah, he did a great job. The problem with Crystal Skull is just some of the issues it had, like as far as, you got the nuke the fridge, which is the equivalent of jump the shark now, the ridiculous scene of him getting in the fridge and surviving a nuclear explosion.
However that happened.
And you got people going, oh, now I know where to go. And you see, if we ever had any kind of, God forbid, anything like that happen.
They don't even make fridges like that anymore.
Lifetime, people going in their kitchen and pulling food out.
Those were lead-lined fridges.
I know. But, I mean, even a lead-lined fridge, that thing is going to be absolutely destroyed.
Yeah.
So, anyways, there's a lot of weird things about that. I think it was a little bit too much CGI.
I liked it.
I know they're
an alien
Indiana
concept
Jones movie
too,
with CGI, and it's like a little bit too much. Shia LaBeouf swinging like monkeys. It was just a little too much.
He was scared shitless. I'm sorry.
I don't
like to say bad words, but
you
he
saw
was
him,
scared out of his mind.
Suddenly he got a routine like he was Tarzan swinging through this jungle, and he had monkeys following him.
But it was more funny than anything. It was such slapstick. But it kind of brings you back to that age, that
and the 60s that built towers out of themselves. I'm sure they do that, but it was just weird.
Yeah.
Let's move along.
We're already like 45 minutes in, bro.
Okay, so your number 5 was what?
Crystal Skull.
Okay. My number 5 was Raiders, which we already talked about. What was your number 4?
Number 4, probably, again, it's the same ones. I'd have to say Temple of Doom.
Okay.
Number 4.
Okay. Yeah, a lot of people don't like that one just because it's so different than the others and so dark and all that. And it also is the only one that has the title stylized as it does, where it's like looks like it does on the cover. All the other Indiana Jones are just simple print that says, Raiders of the Lost Ark, Kingdom of the Crystal Skull and all that. And it was so much darker. Such a I don't know, that was a dark kids movie, Indiana Jones were supposed to be kids movies.
Ripping hearts out of chests and stuff like that,
Not kids movies, but kid friendly movies.
Dr. Jones.
I don't know if we're allowed to do that.
You say that every time I do that.
I just don't know if we're allowed to do that.
I'm literally repeating the movie.
I know. You could just say Dr. Jones, but you don't have to go Dr. Jones.
I'm sure Harrison Ford does it all the time. He probably wakes up every morning.
Harrison Ford doesn't care about, they ask him, if you blah, 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 this about Star Wars. He's like, I don't even know what any of that is. So, my number 4 is Catch Me If You Can.
I thought you said that
I did. Oh, no. That's where I had, E.T.
Saying we're not writing
I'm sorry. No, that's, no. I had it and then I moved it. I moved Catch Me If You Can down. And that's why, because of E.T. So, anyways, my number 4 is E.T. That's why I had that there. I don't know why I switched that around or whatever.
Cover up, brother.
Your number 4 was Kingdom. So, what's your number 3?
My number 3 probably would be Lost World, Jurassic Park 2.
Okay, my number 3 is Jaws. And, we've talked about that. Jaws would have been a lot lower, maybe not even on the list a while ago. But as I've looked at movies a little bit better.
Sharknado, you realize that Sharknado was better than Jaws?
No, ever since we started this journey, and you and I have been really digging into what's behind everything instead of just being simple popcorn eaters, I've had a lot more appreciation for certain movies. So yeah, I did watch Jaws and had a lot more fun with that. We were going to review that this month, but as we said, our friends over at the Horror and Heels already did that, and so we feel we're going to leave
have we done American History X? I was thinking about that the other day.
No, and I was actually just watching a video on that the other day.
We should do one on that one because that's a phenomenal movie.
Well, not only is the movie phenomenal, but have you heard the whole story behind it?
I've done that one before.
Have you heard the whole story behind it with Edward Norton and his problems with the director and stuff?
No.
We'll get to it. Because,
well, there we go. That's a good, more of a reason.
Yeah, I mean, basically, it's more Edward Norton's movie than the director.
Yeah, which then that makes him a phenomenal writer as well.
Well, what happened? It all happened in the editing. It's all about the editing and the edit. I will talk more about that, but yeah, I have Jaws. It's a great movie. It's great for suspense. It's very simple, but in all of its characters, Robert Shaw, what's his name? Richard Dreyfuss.
Yeah.
And dude who plays Martin Brody. They all did a great job. What's your number 2?
Jurassic Park.
Your number 2 is Jurassic Park.
Yes.
Okay, interesting.
I mean, you can guess what my number 1 is.
Well, it's probably what I'm about to say my number 2 is, but we could probably talk about these interchangeably. My number 2 is Last Crusade.
Yeah, that's my number 1.
So your number 1 is Last Crusade, and your number 2 is Jurassic Park. That shows us. My number 1 is Jurassic Park, and my number 2 is Last Crusade.
But remember how I was saying that, they kind of interchange. It depends on if I'm in a Jurassic Park type mood or if I'm in a Indiana Jones. But the thing is there's a story with Last Crusade. It's one of the first movies I can remember actually watching and really taking in, and really, because what it was is I was in Cub Scouts, when we lived up in Maine.
I remember this actually.
I was up in Cub Scouts, and we had a Cub Scout meeting, and
then everybody stayed the night real late, right?
Yes.
I remember this because I was there with you. Yeah. I wasn't actually in the Scouts, but Dad had brought me along too, and they were like, Indiana Jones. I'm like, I don't want to watch that stupid movie because I'd never seen it before.
Yeah, but it's really I remember eating pizza and doing the Cub Scout thing, but we sat there and watched that movie, and it was really the first movie I can remember watching and taking in.
Yeah.
Really, really. And then, wanting to be Indiana Jones at the same time, what I mean? And again, it shows my age, but,
with the awesome portrayal of young Indiana Jones by River Phoenix.
Man, I mean, even that was great. I mean, you really believed it. And then having Sean Connery, that was my real,
Junior.
I do remember watching Highlander, which I think actually came out, when did Highlander come out?
Before
80s,
Last Crusade came out. It was quite a bit ago.
So I remember watching Highlander, but I think I may have watched it after I watched Indiana Jones, because there's some stuff in Highlander that probably a 4 or 5 year old shouldn't watch. So I'm pretty sure I did watch that after Last Crusade. But I really you get your first interaction as a kid that age in the 80s. Your first interaction with Sean Connery.
Yeah.
I mean, Harrison Ford. As kids, we all knew him from Star Wars as Han Solo, and I, as a kid, wanted to be Luke Skywalker. I didn't want to be Han Solo, and so it just, you had Han Solo, but then you had, brain fart, Sean Connery.
Oh, yeah. You mean Harrison Ford and Sean Connery?
Yeah. But, I mean, you had Harrison Ford and Sean Connery, and that was my first interaction with Sean Connery, and he was like, he was the awesome grandpa or something, you know what I mean? Because he was so slick with it, even though he was an old and he played kind of a nerdy person in this, but they're both womanizers. Indiana Jones was a womanizer, and so was Sean Connery. Sean Connery is one of probably the most famous for it, being a womanizer, from James Bond films and things like that. You know what I mean? Not saying that he was like that personally, but a lot of his characters are like that.
It was good because it's the most personal about Indiana Jones. Even more so than the ones with him and his romantic interests.
Right.
Are the ones where is the one where he reconnects with his dad, who has always been absent. Whether he's presently there but mentally absent, or actually absent on these digs, these hunts.
Yeah.
He always wanted to be like his dad in the archaeology and research aspect,
but not in the religious aspect.
But he wanted to be like that too. But he wanted to be like that other dude with the fedora. That was really cool in the adventurer part of it.
Yeah, and see, his dad was that person. He was that adventurer, not as heavily as Harrison Ford was. I mean, he's not the fighter or not the gunslinger, none of that. But he got his brain. It's kind of like two different parents. He got his brains from his dad, and then he got his how would you describe his character as being like a
who?
Kind of like
which one?
A swashbuckler.
Oh,
Indiana Jones. So he got his brains from them, but he got his swashbuckling side from.
I always saw him as an archaeologist first, and an adventure swashbuckler.
Not because
last.
When we open up and finally
why would he be teaching.
Yeah, but when we finally and see, we're going to do these movies. You already promised me.
We will.
But the way he was like you open up to him going through, being the swashbuckling side of it. You don't open up to him to be
that's why it's so cool, because then you go watch him go be in his real job, and you see that whether he's out there,
he hates it though.
But whether he's out there or whether he's in the classroom, he loves the history about it, the archaeology about it, the finding stuff, and it belongs in a museum. That type of thing.
See, this episode is going to be good when we finally do Indiana Jones, because I think we look at that character totally opposite ways. Because for me, I look at him like he goes to these schools because he has to.
No, I'm not saying he likes being at the school teaching.
Like he would rather be swinging from a whip and
that's what I'm saying. It's like, okay, I guess me and you're saying he likes the adventure of it. I'm saying he likes the history and the historical archaeology of it. As far as Jurassic Park goes, look, man, every time I hear somebody say the name Steven Spielberg, when I hear that name, the thing that pops in my head is the T-Rex coming out of the cage, is the title of Jurassic Park and that logo that it had with the skeleton T-Rex in it and everything.
Yeah.
Anytime I think of Spielberg, that flashes, and then I'll think of something else, and I'll think of some of his other movies, whatever. But it's always that flash first. For me, Jurassic Park is Steven Spielberg.
And here's an intro into actually the movie we're doing today in this episode. But when you hear that music, nothing like it in the entire planet. And I guarantee you, almost everybody on this planet could tell you what that music does.
Same thing with Star Wars, Superman, any John Williams.
Yes. And this is why, going from our list, because we're done with our list, right?
Yeah, and I was about to say, what's the one movie that wasn't on either of our list or the honorable mentions?
Minority Report.
Exactly.
But here's the thing. Going into this movie,
which is why we're talking about our list more than we're talking about Minority Report.
But anyways, going into this movie, when you start out in the movie and it's just kind of slow moving. It's telling a little bit of history. You're seeing the climax of the movie at the very beginning.
Right.
You're seeing what's, and that's why I didn't like the beginning of this movie. It was extremely confusing. Because remember, they started out with doing flashes from the ultimate vision and the ultimate murder
from what's her name's murder,
Abigail, or from Abigail's mom.
Yeah.
So is it Abigail or is it it's Augusta or Augusta? What is her name? The precog.
The precog is Agatha.
Agatha. I knew it started with an A.
I just had it in front of me.
Augusta.
Brain farted as well.
Yeah. But anyways, you get seeing this vision at first, and I think it's extremely confusing because, like, if you don't know what's going to happen, I mean, if this is the first time you're watching this movie, you're like, wait, let me rewind it. It's kind of like that movie we were trying to watch yesterday. We had to keep on rewinding it because it was just we couldn't keep up with it.
It was dark too.
Yeah,
and it was light inside the room, so we couldn't see anything.
But this movie at first, you start out, you're like, wait, I got to rewind it because I got to see what are they showing us something? Is this part of the movie? It's very confusing because they don't get any kind of context with that very beginning of the film, and so you're kind of wondering, and then it pops up to him, the couple. The first murder that we witness or pre-murder we witness. Uh-huh. It starts out with a couple. They're kind of lovey-dovey. The wife's kind of seems off, anyways. Like she's trying to rush them out of the house. And you open up to this scene, and you're coming from these flash scenes, and it just kind of gets confusing at first. But
maybe if you saw the trailer or the premise for the movie, it would make more sense watching it. But yeah, coming right off. say you didn't know anything about the movie, you just saw something that said Minority Report with Tom Cruise, you don't know it's in the future or whatever. I don't know. Maybe it'd be confusing, but I think that's supposed to be, that's every movie. You got to jump in at some point. Okay, let me intro this real quick. Minority Report is a film came out in 2002. Is directed by Steven Spielberg, written by Scott Frank and John Cohen, who did basically an adaptation because this was a Philip K. Dick story. Philip K. Dick also, obviously, his stories were turned into movies like Blade Runner, Total Recall, Minority Report. The Total Recall was done twice. Minority Report, Scanner Darkly, Adjustment Bureau, and then Man in the High Castle was done as well. So very prolific science fiction writer. It stars Tom Cruise as Chief John Anderton. It also stars Colin Farrell as Danny Whitwer, Samantha Morton as Agatha, Max von Sydow as the director of Pre-Crime, Lamar Burgess. It also stars...
Such a good actor, by the way.
He is a very good actor. It also stars Steve Harris, Neil McDonough, also a great actor from Justified. Yep. Those are all the main players that you'll see in this movie. This movie... very interesting visuals in it. When they were first making the movie, Steven Spielberg, he wanted the screenwriter to write the story as if it was today. Let's not worry about technology and everything, because so many movies can get bogged down with trying to explain technology or show technology that when you get to the story, there's no real story, or it doesn't have good substance and everything. So, anyways, he told the screenwriter to write the story, so, as if it was today. So, a phone call, someone picks up the phone, not like a futuristic phone or whatever. If somebody needs to get to the car, the script should say, this person gets in the car and drives away. That's how it should be. And then once they got the story nailed down, then they can start messing with the technology. So it was a cool approach. I believe they bleached the negatives of the film in this to give it that washed color where it was, it looks real rough, it looks real bright and gritty, harsh and gray and everything. So you got all these elements that are creating a very real feeling world. It feels like it's only maybe 10 years in the future. Put aside the psychics.
It's kind of like A Man in the High Castle. Kind of the way they filmed that one is the same kind of. It's kind of more looked like a dystopian type future.
Yeah, and you have certain vehicles that are probably like maglev type things that go up the sides of buildings and car parks and everything, and and then you got readers, little scanners that read things either for advertisement, to personalize your advertisements, or to track you if you get on, when he gets on a train, and everything. So all that stuff is believable that it could happen in the next 10 years or so. So,
scary is what it is.
It is, but I mean, it's always been like that. Like, I could believe that has happened 10 years from now, back in 2002. And then, 2012, you're like, I could believe that could happen 10 years from now. So it puts it in a way where no matter when you watch it, until at least we get beyond that technology that's in the movie, if we ever do, it puts it in a frame where we could see this really happening. So it's happening in the future, but you're there. Your suspension of disbelief is gone. You believe that you could be in this world, that this world can happen. Now you have to get over the whole precogs and the people that can see the future. But it's a really good world that he set up. It's you feel like it's lived in.
Yeah.
Right. You got so many futuristic movies. You're like, yeah, this just looks like a movie set or something. But this looks like a very gritty, lived-in world. It's based on the premise that there's basically these three precogs, or precognizant people, who can perceive future events. Their minds are read, and somehow the technology spits out a wooden ball with the names.
It's from a theory, though. It's from a theory of a future writer. Because what Spielberg did is he got a lot of these future prediction scientists or what have you.
Yeah.
And I read something about it. I don't know the full story. I probably should have wrote this down, but it has to do with the billiard balls and predicting. There's no real prediction of where the ball is going to go or something like that. I don't know. There's some weird theory. I mean, I should have really wrote it down. But
is it like chaos theory, like when Jeff Goldblum was talking in Jurassic Park? You don't know where the water's going to go.
But yeah, kind of. But
it
like exactly, and it has a kind of thing with the balls, with the. Anyways, like billiard balls or something like that, or I don't know. There's some theory behind it, but yeah. So, and then both these different wooden balls. I can't believe I said balls so many times.
Stop saying balls so much.
But these two wooden round objects,
right?
The first one comes out and says basically the victim, and then the second one comes out and it's the accused. Basically, it's the person that is actually going to commit the crime.
And we don't know how they extrapolate that from visions, but
yeah. And then you get different. They have different colors of these round objects, and these,
brown and red.
Right. And then if you get a red one, it means murder. It's basically a murder.
I thought they were all murder, but red is the ones that aren't premeditated. They're the ones that are more urgent.
Okay, maybe that was it.
Yeah, because I think when they're like, oh, we got a red ball, which means, and I think he even told the guy when it's red, that means that they're urgent, they're not premeditated. These are crimes of passion, different things.
Yeah,
so
that's
they
right.
have to be more urgent about solving the case.
Yeah.
At least that's how I saw it or whatever. But this movie, it's really interesting, and it's got some great visuals and everything. But there's nothing that makes this movie really stand out. I guess from a lot of other sci-fis like AI or even iRobot.
Yeah, I mean the car scenes were
reminds
pretty good.
Me a lot of iRobot.
Yeah,
actually.
I mean it does, and the car scenes were really good. The jetpack scenes weren't phenomenal.
They're a little rough.
Because, you could tell that they kept it, a lot of the times they were in alleys, right?
Yeah.
So when you're doing kind of close-ups with these jetpacks, they were in small, secluded areas. So you know that there was wire work there going on, behind the scenes. So they didn't really, it wasn't like phenomenal type stuff, I mean, and even with switching out the eyes situation, they didn't really get into full showing it. Not that I wanted to see it, but it's kind of one of those things where they cut it short. You could tell on a lot of stuff, instead of, maybe they didn't want to put a ton of CGI in to make it look like maybe even a possibility.
Yeah, I think they were worried about being overwhelmed with CGI.
Yeah.
This is 2002. This is when like Attack of the Clones was coming out.
Yeah.
His best friend George Lucas was getting panned for all the CGI he was putting in his movies, so there could have been some of that to it. It could have been a thing in Hollywood.
So they are besties?
A lot of, oh yeah, Steven Spielberg and I mean Lucas is friends with like Coppola and Spielberg and all the Scorsese, all these people that came up like in California as like film students together and went on, but yes. Spielberg and Lucas have been friends for
I knew they were
friends. I think they stayed at each other's houses and stuff when they were younger. I mean, like when they were college students and stuff. But this movie it's got a lot of themes that you have to break down. A lot of things that cross and it's hard to find a point in this movie.
Yeah, and it seems like they open up a lot of possible side stories in a way. You know what I mean? Like they don't fully get into the details of our main characters in the film. Like where did Colin Farrell come from? Like what was he? Is he a famous investigator? Is he has he brought down some big names? I mean, he just kind of pops on the screen. Tom Cruise, he lost his son, but it didn't even really go into the details of, where he could possibly be or where he ended up. But and just the precogs, you didn't really get to find out any kind of real backstories like on the Weasley brothers, Fred and George. You didn't really get any kind of detail, or even the crazy plant lady.
Talking about the Ministry of Magic.
Oh, I thought that's why they could see the future. They came from Harry Potter.
Right? No, was it? What did Trelawney used to do? I can't remember. But no, I mean, Danny Whitwer, who was played by Colin Farrell, he was from the Department of Justice. He did say he was there, and they audit pre-crime because as the Department of Justice, you're making arrests and putting away people forever.
And it's still not a permanent program. It's still in trial, and maybe this was the last step towards.
Yeah, because it was just DC. It
Yeah.
was just DC that it was happening in. They wanted to go nationwide and everything.
Yeah.
But
you know what I mean? There's a lot of characters and a lot of possible stories, but they kind of really just kind of were vague about everything. I mean, even the guy that he arrested and ended up switching out his eyes, there was a story there as well. Like, it just kind of left some open stories there, I felt like, and that was the only thing. There wasn't really any kind of depth to it,
Yeah, I think the movie places all its focus and attention, at least the main story, on pre-crime and whether it works or not. But they set up so many different things that aren't really followed through.
That's what I'm talking about.
As much as I would like them to be, and
Absolutely.
everything. I mean, obviously there's certain things that are left hanging for a reason. But I just felt like certain things were introduced or brought in there, like the themes of fate versus free will.
Yeah,
it's not. It's not really. It feels like that's what the movies should be about, or it is about. But they don't really talk about it. It's almost like they put up this theory, like, "What do you think?" They had the conversation between Colin Farrell and Tom Cruise's character. Well, how do you know? How do you know that was going to happen? Why'd you catch the ball? Well, because it was going to fall. How do you know it was going to fall? So this whole thing of predeterminism and all that kind of stuff, and it proposes that, and then it switches. Should pre-crime be a functioning thing? Does it work and everything?
Well, and that's kind of like with Colin Farrell's character, like, he just kind of flip-flopped there, I noticed, because he came in basically like pretty much calling it a bunch of hot garbage, but because his rival, or some guy that's higher up on the food chain, I guess you could say, with Tom Cruise's character, he didn't like him off the bat.
But he didn't think it was garbage. If you remember, he got in the time, he goes, "I agree, the system is perfect." He goes, "That means that the only flaw in the system has to be human."
Yeah.
So he was looking for, his job is to look for flaws.
Yeah.
And he knows that in anything, you're going to have a flaw. When he looked at the system, okay, what about the balls? What about this? What about that? He got them to answer all his questions. And after they answered the questions, he told Tom Cruise, he's like, "I agree, the system is perfect and everything. That means that if there's a flaw, it has to be human." And that's when he sees something, and I don't know how he sees something in Tom Cruise, maybe just from his history of what happened with his son, but he knows that it felt like to me that he wanted the job.
Well, no, that's what he was saying. I mean, that he pretty much, like when he went into what's-his-face's office, when, Tom Cruise's character was like, Mr. Anderton?
Yeah, Mr. Anderton.
Yeah.
Anderson.
Yeah, but... And I got that mixed up. That's what I was thinking with Matrix. Just like, it is Mr. Anderson. I was like, where am I getting Mr. Anderton from? Anyways, but, he just seemed like he didn't believe it. He was challenging it. He was questioning it. I mean, I know he said it was perfect.
It's a very weird character, Danny.
And then he ends up using it to try to capture Tom Cruise.
Right, and then saying stuff like, "I'm going to enjoy working here," like he's going to take over and everything.
Yeah.
But then, at the end, he then started to believe Tom Cruise's character, and then was like, well, maybe then, like, it looked like he was trying to find the truth out.
And he was a jerk. Like you couldn't tell when he was being a jerk or he was just being.
Well, he was being a
good
jerk
at his job.
But yeah, he had something against Anderton because he thought Anderton was guilty. Because obviously, remember, he had said the system is perfect.
Yeah,
so it's got to be the person. So if the system is saying Anderton's going to kill somebody, then he's. So I think that's one of the things. Like Danny Whitwer, he was shown it and he believed in the pre-crime, but then he never got to see that there was flaws in the system.
Yeah, and it was just really weird because pretty much it was showing that it's not a perfect system. That there are so many different possibilities. Like there's not just one. The movie was trying to explain this, but that it wasn't just one outcome.
Yeah,
there were several different outcomes. It's just that's the outcome that precog decided to rest upon.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. That's the one they saw, but they were trying to point that there's so many different kind of outcomes. But it was also, I think, the movie was also trying to push a lot of what we're seeing nowadays. I won't get any more into that, but the fact that you got some of your civil liberties. That there's a very fine line there. You know what I mean? Like,
how can you arrest somebody if they haven't done anything yet?
Right. But then at the same time, why wouldn't you arrest somebody? I mean, I'm not saying I agree with this, but why would you arrest somebody?
You're posing the question.
Yeah. And it just, for me, just like saying, you know, I mean, you're taking away all their freedoms. Just like he went into his house or his apartment or whatever and found these drugs, which, again, it was another story that we didn't know anything about.
It's like, okay, let's make the main character an addict. So he's an addict. He's a drug addict. But it doesn't really do like it. I mean, I guess that's what Whitwer used to start investigating him. He found that he broke into his house, but I mean, that's what he used to start investigating him. But it was like that had nothing to do. You know, it gave him connections to the underworld to find new eyes or whatever. But I don't know. I
felt like they were trying to push an agenda in this film, with saying, you know, that they were trying to justify that there are some, you know, civil liberties that you can change. You know, I'm not agreeing with this, but saying that there are some civil liberties that you can change is for the greater good. You know what I mean? And so, like, their greater good is, you know, preventing a murder from happening. You know, where in all reality, that's going against, you know, your constitutional rights. Well, at least in this country, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's going against your constitutional right. If that cop was found out that he went into this guy's apartment and found that cop would have been immediately fired. You know what I mean? Or moved somewhere else. And you know, Tom Cruise's character wouldn't have gotten arrested for it necessarily, because I mean, he broke into his house to find this evidence. You know what I mean?
That's what I mean. This is one of the things that I put is, why the drugs? Why was that necessary? Why is that whole plot necessary?
I feel like that was a Tom Cruise decision on that one.
I don't know. Maybe it's very weird. Maybe Tom Cruise like, I've never played a drug addict before, and maybe it was in the book, and he's like, let's keep that in the movie and stuff. And
I've never found it
like, it makes it sad because like it's supposed to make you. I don't know, enlighten you or something like that. Give you, I don't know. But he uses it and he just watches videos of his kid.
Yeah.
And that was terrible. That was a terrible, awful part of the movie that I hated, you know, especially with my son. One of my biggest fears is that, you know, he's going to be, you know, swooped up by somebody or whatever.
Which in all intents and purposes, we never even found out what happened to his son.
That's what I'm saying. And
know?
It's never explained in the movie, which adds that extra bit of weight, but it doesn't feel like something like that belongs in a movie like this.
Well, and Agatha, you know, you kind of wonder, you know, near the end there, if Agatha was she really, you know, because at that point when he breaks her out, right, she doesn't know what the real life is. She doesn't know what the real world is. She even has to ask him, are we right now? Are we here right now?
Is this right now?
Is this right now? You know, so like she hasn't seen anything else like this, but she goes on to tell them a whole vivid story about their son, and you know how he's, you know, going to college and doing this, and you know, growing up to be this. You know, we don't know. Maybe she's actually seeing the future. Maybe he did get kidnapped and, you know, got misplaced, you know, got sent with another family in a different state or something like that. You know, I mean, she's going through the whole
Minority
story
Report.
Right.
Because a Minority Report is basically, they all have reports, and you have the Majority Report, which is the report. If you have 3, it's got to be the opinion of 2.
Yeah.
And you have the Minority Report, which is the opinion of the lesser, which would be, in this case, 1 out of 3.
Yeah.
So Minority Reports are basically an alternate.
Yeah.
You got an alternate future.
But see, they're basing it on only basically 3 different possibilities.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, like, they all see the same thing or whatever. I don't even think it's 3 different possibilities. I just think, you know, they all see future events or whatever, but she just sees it differently somehow. Maybe she can see other timelines or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't believe it. I'm one of these people. I don't believe that there's multiple timelines. I believe that everything happens supposed to happen. I believe that.
Hey, the Flash tells us there's supposed to be multiverses, and now Marvel's getting into it too.
Right? So it's, I don't know. I don't know why they brought the drugs into it.
Yeah.
But to get to your point is, you know, this is something I wrote down. You know, dissent is key in Law and Order.
Yeah.
Okay, because you know, you don't want to be oppressed. You should have your freedom. Yeah. So dissent is key in Law and Order, and encouraged so as to see all the facts and not just those easily evident. You know, if you have dissent into what somebody's saying, it's going to make you say, okay, well, let's relook at this, let's re-examine it, and see all the facts instead of what you're just being told by one party or whatever. But the most important form of dissent in our society is innocent until proven guilty. my opinion, because that protects our freedoms. With that, pre-crime is impossible because there's no evidence of a crime that hasn't been committed.
Yeah.
Because they're arresting people for crimes that hasn't been committed. Do you have to let the crime happen? Yes. And it's a terrible way to think about it, but you can't not arrest somebody for something they didn't do.
Yeah.
Especially when you're not omnipotent. Even the precogs are human. There's always a chance for error. Scientists will say that. Nothing is 100%.
Yeah.
We know the one thing that's 100%, but it's nothing else in this world is 100%. So that's why this whole pre-crime thing is impossible, because there's no evidence of the crime except for what the precogs see. But that's like asking a couple non-reliable bystanders of a crime. So pretend you had bystanders of a crime in our day and age or whatever. You would interview them. Hey, what did you see and everything? And you take down their accounts. That's what the precogs are. They're just bystanders, but they're bystanders of a future event. They're the only ones that can see it. So they're telling you what they saw, but that doesn't mean that what they saw is true. How many times have we had bystanders see a certain thing, but they didn't see it correctly?
Yeah, and they didn't actually commit the crime, even if they said they would. It's funny because you started the episode with Dante, saying that he wanted to kill them or whatever that, and it's like, just because you say that doesn't mean necessarily that you're going to kill him. But it's, again, that's the way that this precog was taking it, having this minority report or majority report, whatever. That's why how they were using it, because even though that person might have all intents and purposes to want to kill that person, but just like Tom Cruise proved at the end of the movie, that you can actually make the decision to go against that, and so just like with Dante, saying you can do it doesn't mean he was actually going to do it.
Yeah. What if we go down to the target and something happened back there, right? Something happened down there, and there are 3 bystanders. 2 of them saw it one way, 1 of them saw it the other way.
Yeah.
Is a detective gonna poo-poo what the other one saw just because these 2 saw something? They would probably take more of that and try to investigate. Okay, because now I got 2 people seeing the same thing.
Yeah.
But they're not just gonna throw away this other thing.
And no, because just like if me and you were gonna go into a Target or to a store like that, and somebody was stealing something, you might catch them doing it, or you might catch a detail about it because of your line of work or whatever that I wouldn't normally catch.
Right.
You know what I mean? A little thing right then. So just because you might have I saw the same exact thing you did, you're still going to have a lot more detail because of who you are and what you're.
And not only that, what if we saw it wrong?
Yeah.
What if you and I saw it, we were like, yeah, that's how I saw it too. Yeah, it definitely did that. And it didn't happen like that. You get video camera coverage, and actually, we were just at a certain angle that we saw the wrong thing.
Yeah.
That's
bad kind of lighting or whatever.
Exactly. That's why precogs can't be trusted, because you can have witnesses in a trial, but you need other evidence. Because if you see this person, they saw one thing, but the defense has a witness that says no, actually it happened this other way.
Yeah.
You can't go off of that evidence. Evidence is not enough. It's circumstantial.
We're only human in the sense that our minds trick us daily.
Yeah.
Our minds are constantly. When you get deja vu, you've never experienced this before. It's just a reset in your memory, a quick reset. So you feel like you've experienced this before, but your mind plays tricks on you. Just like if we're walking down the street, we might see 2 different things because maybe my mind's playing a trick on me and your mind's playing a trick on you with the lighting or whatever
and
else.
All 3 of them have to come together in their mind and spit out a report.
Right.
And the machine reads it a certain way. So if you have 3 witnesses and they're all talking to each other, you got one saying, I didn't see it that way. You got the other 2 saying, yeah, I saw it that way. Did they see it that way? Or that's the kind of thing that you have to look at when watching this movie. It's the same thing. Is those 3, just because they can see certain events doesn't mean they're seeing everything.
Yeah.
And I know that's part of the detective's job or whatever, but what if the images they're seeing didn't actually happen that way? What if it got warped in their mind or whatever? They're not seeing it correctly or whatever.
Yeah, and if you notice too, they did a lot of overkill in this movie as far as how many detectives. I again get it. You send that many to go after Anderton, but the guy at the beginning of the movie, that ends up catching his wife, like I was talking about before, ends up catching his wife with this other guy that he saw, out the corner of his eye across the street or whatever, there really wasn't any detective work there. I mean, you're catching this guy that's probably a little bit overweight, not athletic.
You're going off of witness statements.
Right.
The precogs are the witnesses. So based on the witness statements, they were able to find certain things. But that doesn't necessarily mean that was ultimately going to happen. Yeah. And it's proven throughout this movie, through Minority Reports, through what Anderton did, and through ultimately Burgess deciding not to kill Anderton at the end of the movie, decided we're not doing, how do you know that's what actually happened? Because they decided something different for their future.
Yeah.
So what they saw, what the precogs saw, didn't actually happen.
Yeah.
Which means that their accuracy has to come into question, and you're imprisoning these people for the rest of their lives, putting them in a comatose state, whether you give them a dream or not.
Yeah.
You're putting them in the ground until they die.
Yeah. These
people who may not have done them, may have had different histories. Now, the movie makes a note about, well, you saw your past and any future, and any future that's seen can then be changed.
Yeah.
So basically, every time that they're using these precogs to see the future, they shouldn't be incarcerating these people because now they've changed it. I don't know. I just think there's so much kind of wibble wobble about this, and there was never a lot of clear, direct themes or concepts that were reinforced because they had so much of it. They had the drug addicts. They had the, it really irked me that we didn't get to find out what happened to the son. Yeah. But I think it's on purpose because we're supposed to feel a bit of what John feels in the grief that he never got to know what happened. Well, it's devastating reality in this movie that's inescapable. So I think there was obviously a point to it. I think it would have been better served in a different movie, but it at least gave us some kind of a bit of despair at the end of the movie, and that connects us with Tom Cruise's character a bit more because that's what he feels and never getting to know what happened to his son either.
And he has, he's got a good ending. I mean, he really does. Because what the precogs thought, that he was going to get shot and killed and all that other stuff, and then Agatha saw that or whatever. But it just, he ends up. I mean, obviously, I guess he gets back with his wife. I mean, he didn't really actually say that for sure.
No, it did because remember she got pregnant.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Yeah,
baby.
Yeah, but he, they still lost the son, and it was like no ending to that, no real kind of.
But that puts you in more of his shoes because then you're left feeling, well, that sucks. That's awful. I want to know what happened to him, and it's frustrating that we can't know what happened to him.
Yeah, and
that's only a minute fraction of what he'd be feeling as a character with his son. I want to talk about the observer effect. It says that once a future event has been observed, it can be changed in this movie, right?
Mm-hmm.
People, especially Anderton, believe in results, action, punishment, and believe in a measure of control, believing it would have saved his son, right?
Yeah.
In the moment where he's in Leo Crow's hotel room, it shows his helplessness in the face of fate. When he sees all those pictures and his son, he's like, I'm going to kill this guy. He's like, I am going to kill this guy. And he realizes what would make him kill somebody. And even though you're thinking the whole time, you're like, well, I could think of why you would want to kill somebody. And it's pretty obvious.
Yeah, and see, I kind of got that before they showed. I mean, when you saw that it was a creepy guy.
Even though it wasn't real.
Yeah, it wasn't real.
Burgess had the same idea we did.
Yeah, I automatically went there. And as a father, you never know what you could do at a moment like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, I felt that part in the entire movie more than any other part of the movie. You know what I mean? I felt that because I was just like, I don't know what I don't know what I would do in that position. I mean, you hear about these fathers doing, basically, killing these pedophiles and things like that that mess with their children and their daughters especially, and killing them, and then not being disappointed in themselves that they went to jail for life or went to jail for however many years. I was reading an article, and one guy, he said, he found out that this friend of his daughter's dad or something like that did that, and he went over there, shot him in the head, served 13 years in prison, said I would do it again. Yeah. In fact, they ended up finding like 6 other girls that this happened to, and he sent they were sending mail to him in jail thanking him because that happened to their kids. This guy did this to their kids.
The Post Credit Podcast wants to state that is not right.
Yeah.
We don't believe in retaliation, revenge,
absolutely,
and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, but I mean, as a father, you go, you think
that's
of
what I'm
all
saying with this movie.
Things. Yeah,
and with his character and what he found, it's kind of one of those things where it's like you don't know. I mean, you feel that because you're like, I don't know what I would do in that position as well. I mean, to a point. I mean, but it just the way they set that up was just so creepy. I mean, putting his son into pictures like that, it's like, how could you bring yourself? I mean, that old man was truly an evil person. I mean, in all reality.
Burgess?
Yeah. Lamar was a truly evil person to be able to orchestrate this and to throw something like that into father's face.
Well, not only that, but committing the murder and copying a vision to commit the murder and everything, which...
I mean, it's simple. Kind of an implying, too, is that, with the crazy plant lady, she was saying that they went through hundreds of kids, and so it's kind of almost thinking like maybe he was one of the kids that went through that process.
Well, and that's what I was going to say at the beginning of this. What if one of those precogs was like his kid or something like that?
Attempted precogs, because they were trying to make a few of them.
I was saying like one of the ones with Agatha.
Yeah,
like one of his kids or whatever. But that's an interesting thought too.
Yeah.
I think here's my opinion. I don't think the precogs are showing what happens. They're showing what could happen.
Yeah,
and I think that's what the movie shows at the end too. But if we're looking at these as the same thing as bystanders watching something, it's just that they're seeing it in the future. What was I going to say? Let's say the murders never would have happened. Okay, that's what I believe. I believe the precogs can only predict intent.
Okay.
So somebody who's premeditating, a ball comes out, and there's a version of that future that could have happened, but they're not in that future. They're in their own world, and in their own world, pre-crime has always stopped that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
This is okay. You got the multiverse, right?
Yeah.
Where they're saying all these different things. Doctor Strange goes in his mind and is thinking about all the different things that are going to happen, but they're in their timeline, right? They're not in all those other multiple timelines that he went through. They're in their timeline. In their timeline, they won. So in this world, all these things could have happened. These visions that they're happening and everything, but those were happening in different timelines. They're in their timeline, and their timeline, pre-crime has always stopped them. They never committed the murders. So none of them should ever be arrested, just stopping whatever it was. So I mean, that's what I believe, that they can predict intent, and then in this timeline, it's always stopped.
Well, here's where it gets confusing, though. When she's leading him through the mall, and they're getting chased, she knows exactly what's going to happen, and the balloon's going in front of him.
Because she can read their intent. And I have here that Agatha is better at reading intent. That's why her minority reports, because remember, she's the only one that has minority reports. Yeah. The other two always agree. She's the only one that dissents.
Yeah.
And I think hers is more reliable.
Yeah.
So, she's agreeing that these other murders could happen, like these other two are happening. But she's also saying... that because we never actually saw a minority report. Remember, she said Anderton didn't have one, and Burgess never had one. Her mother never had a minority report. It was just a staged murder made to look like something else. So I don't know. We can get real muddy into this, but maybe I'm not.
It's just it no. I see what you're saying with that, but again, like I said, the only thing that kind of throws you through. I mean, it's going through trying to talk about time and the way that they put time and time travel and things like that. It can be very confusing, but I think they're seeing what's happening in their strand of the multiverse, right? Mm-hmm. But again, there's multiple strains with her. She's able to see. She's kind of living in the present as well as, kind of in the future, I think, in a way, so she's kind of, that's maybe why she's able to see it more correctly than the other two.
But pre-crime will always stop these things from happening because they have, right?
Yeah.
They haven't had a murder.
Yeah.
So they will always stop these things from happening, but they keep getting visions of these things happening.
Yeah.
But they never happen.
Okay.
So that's not part of our timeline. Those are only presuppositions of what could happen. But the fact that they have the pre-crime and they have the oracles or whatever shows that it won't happen because now they can change it.
Okay.
So I don't know. Therefore, they shouldn't be imprisoned. Is my opinion.
Yeah,
but I don't know. It's like I said. This movie doesn't do a very good job of making the point that it wants to make because there's all these things left in question.
Yeah.
Where it doesn't kind of give any deciding thing at the end. So maybe it's good. It's good type of movie for discussion because it's so open ended. There's so many things that it could be or this. So many things left open and not wrapped. The only thing that was wrapped up was who killed Agatha's mom.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, literally,
they disbanded pre-crime, and all the precogs and stuff were able to live on their own in a normal, secluded place, so they didn't have to see that stuff anymore. But the only thing that was really wrapped up, as far as we never got to find out if he kicked the drugs. He got with his wife again, and they had a kid, so I'm guessing he kicked his drugs and everything, but. I don't know. I just think that some of the things that it was asking, some of the questions that it was asking wasn't explored enough, and the only reason that the system didn't go off is because Burgess killed himself instead of killing Tom Cruise.
Okay.
So I don't know. Nothing was really wrapped up, and I guess my last question has to be the most obvious question of the movie is what happens when the precogs die. Should we go back to regular society? No more pre-crime?
No, because to me that seems like he's gonna just continue to look for future precogs.
It would be a thing where they dissect them down to the last cell to figure out how these precogs have these powers, and then try to put that into somebody else.
Well, and
the
old lady's the one who was helping create it, though.
Yeah, but there was question on how it worked, and for some reason Agatha worked, right?
Yeah.
They still didn't really understand it, but for some reason Agatha worked, and for some reason she worked better than the other two, Arthur and Dashiell. Mm-hmm. So why? They don't know. But they're about to expand pre-crime nationwide from DC, and they don't even have future plans. You'd think they'd at least figure out how to give somebody that power and have reserves. Yeah. Not only reserves, but then backups. Mm-hmm. So you have reserves if something happens to them, and other people to go to places. Because remember, at the end of the movie, the three of them moved into some secluded place, so they couldn't see those things anymore. So it has to go on distance, right? And they only see stuff in the DC area. So how are they going to take that nationwide?
Yeah, because it was saying that every time they fell asleep, it used to be when they fell asleep, they would see these dreams or these horrific dreams that would come true.
Yeah.
So maybe there's a distance thing. Yeah.
So, there's just a lot. I love the movie and I have fun, but to examine it and to see if it makes there's a lot of things that
don't make sense.
There's a lot of things that don't make sense or weren't answered.
How are these three people? How is anybody allowed to keep these three people between the dream and awake for their entire life, laying in these pools, and basically keep them prisoner? How come nobody's saying anything about that?
And is there only one murder happening in D.C. every day or every couple days?
I guess.
I'm pretty sure the murder rate in D.C. is a lot higher than that.
Well, maybe not after a few years of precog,
yeah, okay. So that makes the book, because I was just like, they don't seem to be. They should be overloaded with cases,
because there's literally people that are scared. That bar owner or whatever the heck he was terrified of her. What she would see that he has done or what he would do, he was terrified of her. And so, you also think, you're like, okay, how can they treat him like this? But everybody is terrified of these people. That's
another thing about the movie is that there's so much bad about this world. They're like, oh, look at what we've done. There's not been a murder in 2 years or however long it's been. Yet there's still horrible things going on. Whenever he's hiding in that building and the spiders walking around, you see, these domestic disputes. You see a mother just with these two kids, and you got the seedy underworld of where John goes to get his drugs, and these virtual reality things. So you see it hasn't really changed society. Somebody's so focused on the precogs and the murders that they can prevent that nobody's paying attention to any of the rest of it. You know, I guess we got regular cops for that kind of stuff.
And these people would be those precogs would be mentally ill at that point. You know, and not reading books and hanging out in Harry Potter world. You know, and where they're hiding out at the end of the movie. It's like they would probably have to be in padded rooms. Yeah. You know, for as much murder and everything else they saw. So
I think this is going to be one of those rare times that we can recommend a movie. Yeah. But we recommend it because it's a Steven Spielberg movie and it's fun. And he's a great director. But there's a lot about this movie that's left into question. Some of it that doesn't make a lot of sense. Some contradictions.
It's a good movie to zone out to or not fully, because even if you were to sit there and fully pay attention to it, it still wouldn't probably make sense. You know what I mean?
Well, there's things that contradict, or well, if this is this, then why isn't it? So, you know, this may be one of those movies that our viewers completely shred us for, saying, whoa, you guys didn't get this, you guys didn't get that. Whatever it is, we wanted to review the movie as part of Spielberg Month because I enjoy watching it when it's on. Yeah, I enjoy Neil McDonough. I think he's great as a good guy or a bad guy. Colin Farrell's always great. Yeah, his back and forth with Tom Cruise is great in this movie because there's such huge egos and personalities. And, you know, it had a little mystery element and everything. But, I mean, it's really about the journey and about Tom Cruise running a lot and doing crazy action stuff. And
like he always does.
You know, it's one of these fun movies. And, maybe the book. I will talk about the differences in the book and this. Now, in the book, John Anderson was the head of pre-crime. Yeah. He was the head, and I don't think Lamar Burgess was a character in it. But there was somebody that was pretty close to Leo Crow. His son did go missing, and that's why he was doing this and everything. But once he found out, he went on the search to find out why he was going to commit this crime, or if somebody's setting him up to commit this crime. In the end, he realized that it was kind of like Tom Cruise's situation in that hotel room. But he went ahead and basically, if he didn't commit the murder, then pre-crime would have been proven as fallible, and they would have disbanded it. But he believed in it so much because of what had happened to his son that he did the murder just to keep it going and got in prison just to keep it going. So that was one of those things. There's also a theory out there that the last 10 minutes of the movie is all happening in his head. He's still haloed. Remember, he got haloed. So the theory is that he got haloed, and when he was haloed in his little comatose thing, it was giving him a dream about finding out that Burgess was behind it. He figured it out. He became the hero. Burgess killed himself.
Another Inception.
He got to have a happy, nice life with his wife and a new child. So, I mean, what do you think about that theory?
I mean, I think that's just laziness in a sense. You know what I mean? I think it's just, that's trying to pull straws. That's a stretch.
It's one of those things, having a theory just to have an alternate ending or an alternate view of how some of these events went. But I don't think there's any merit to it. There's no evidence that is what was going on.
I agree.
But anyways, I would recommend this if you want to have some fun. There are some contradictions, some certain things that don't make sense in this movie. Hopefully we talked about certain things that jumped out at us. I know this is a much different episode than what we usually do. We didn't break it down like we usually do, but I don't think that we really needed to. We really just wanted to get into the main things that stuck out to us. So if anybody out there, any listeners want to tell us we're wrong, tell us we missed something, tell us we missed the whole thing entirely, please let us know. We love stuff like that. We love to be able to discuss things like that. And if it's something that will help me enjoy the movie a bit more, let us know. I want to enjoy the movie a bit more, because I'll still watch this movie, but I don't have as much enjoyment out of others that, have some really cool plots that make sense. That nothing doesn't just get left out in the open. So if you get a chance to watch this, maybe wait for it to be free to watch, I'd say. Yeah.
Scientologists, don't come after us. We didn't do anything wrong. I promise you that. You can live your life however you want to.
For our lawyers. If you guys want to get a hold of us, we're on all social media at The Post Credit Podcast, except for Twitter. We're at The Post Credit. Our email address is thepostcreditpodcast@gmail.com. We have a website. It's www.thepostcreditpodcast.com, and we're on YouTube. We appreciate you guys listening, and we'll see you next time.
And throw me a bone.